Today's story is one of those stories that starts so normally that if you heard only the first 5 minutes, you'd never guess where it ends. There's nothing graphic in this story, but there is one moment near the end that is disturbing in a way that sticks with you, not because of what you see, because of what it means. So, viewer discretion is advised. And with that said, let's get into it. In the summer of 2019, a 3-1-year old man named Ryan Keller was living in northern Arizona and working as a private utility inspector. Ryan's job was simple, at least on paper. He drove out to remote sites, checked old service boxes, marked damaged poles, photographed equipment, and sent the reports back to the county or the energy company that hired him. It was the kind of job that required long hours alone, a lot of driving, and a personality that didn't mind silence. Ryan was perfect for it. He was calm, organized, predictable. He wasn't reckless. He wasn't adventurous. And he definitely wasn't the type to disappear. That part matters. Because when someone vanishes, the first question people ask is always the same. Was this normal for them? And for Ryan, the answer was no. He lived alone in a small rental house outside Flagstaff. He had a younger sister named Megan, and they talked all the time, not in some dramatic, emotional way, just constantly. Little updates, dumb jokes, normal sibling stuff. If Ryan was heading somewhere remote, he always texted Megan before he lost service. Always. And if the site was especially far out, he'd also call her once he got there. Not because he was scared, because he was careful. So on Tuesday, August 6th, when Ryan texted Megan at 8:14 inches the morning and said, heading out to the old Black Mesa line, service might suck. I'll call later. Nothing felt unusual. That was normal. At 10:02, Ryan called her. Also normal. The call lasted less than a minute. He sounded tired, but fine. He told her the road out there was worse than he remembered, that his truck was making a strange rattling noise, and that the worksite looked abandoned. Then he laughed and said, "If I find a ghost out here, I'm sending it your way." That was the first call. The second one came 43 minutes later. And that call is the reason anyone remembers Ryan Keller at all. Megan missed it. She was at work. All she saw was that her brother had tried calling again at 10:45. No voicemail. No follow-up text. She didn't think much of it at first. She texted him around noon. No answer. Then at 2 p.m. Still nothing. By 6 p.m., she started getting irritated. Not scared, just annoyed. Ryan was careful, but he was also the kind of guy who could get focused on a task and forget to check his phone for hours, so she figured that was all this was. Then night came. Nothing. At 11:30, she called him 3 times in a row, straight to voicemail each time. The next morning, she drove to his house before work. His truck wasn't there. His dog was inside, and his work laptop was still sitting open on the kitchen table. That was when she called the sheriff. Now, at first, deputies assumed this would be simple. Truck stuck somewhere. Phone dead. Guy sleeping in the cab, waiting for a tow. But by noon, they had enough information to know this was not a simple roadside breakdown. Ryan had never checked in. The work site he was assigned to was in a dead zone with one long dirt road leading in and out. and according to the county office, he had been expected back by 1 p.m. the previous day. Also, there was one more thing. When Megan showed deputies the call log, she mentioned the second call, the one at 10:45. She said he never called twice unless something was wrong, so the deputies asked a phone technician to pull whatever they could from Ryan's provider. Usually, that kind of request takes time. This time, they got lucky, because even though Ryan hadn't left a voicemail, the second call had connected for just over 8 seconds before it dropped. And during those 8 seconds, part of the audio had been preserved. The deputy who first listened to it later said he had to replay it 4 times to make sure he was hearing it right. The first second was nothing. Static, wind, some movement. Then Ryan's voice, quiet and tight, like he was trying not to be heard. He says, "Meg, don't." And then the line cuts sharply. No goodbye, no engine, no explanation. Just that. "Meg, don't." Now obviously, that is not much to work with, but it was enough to turn a missing person search into something else. Search teams were sent out that afternoon. They found Ryan's truck before sunset. It was parked beside an old maintenance road about 6 miles from the official work site. Not wrecked, not hidden, just left there. The driver's door was shut, keys gone. His tool bag was in the back seat. His phone was not in the truck, and on the passenger side floorboard was a folder full of printed inspection maps. One page had been circled heavily in black pen. Not the work site, a different location, about 2 miles south. At first, deputies assumed Ryan had discovered another damaged line and gone to check it, but when they looked closer, that circled location didn't correspond to any utility marker. It was just empty terrain. No equipment, no station, no reason for him to be there. That night, the search was called off because of weather. At sunrise, they resumed with ATVs and dogs. By mid-morning, they found Ryan's boot prints heading south from the truck, then another set of prints. Those were larger, heavier, and they had started after his. So now investigators had something far more troubling than a dead phone. Ryan had not simply walked off. Someone had followed him. The trail led toward a dried wash and then vanished in rocky ground. That by itself wasn't unusual. Terrain can break a track line easily. What was unusual was what they found near the wash. A cheap plastic water bottle. Still cold. Not Ryan's brand. Not from his truck. And buried halfway in the dirt under a bush was Ryan's phone. Screen cracked. Battery dead. They sent it to forensics immediately. And while that was happening, search teams kept going. At 3:17 p.m., one of the dogs locked onto something under an outcropping of rock. It was Ryan, alive, barely responsive, severely dehydrated, one arm fractured, face cut up, and in deep shock. He had not wandered out there. He had been pushed into a narrow gap beneath the rock shelf, where he could not easily climb back out. The official report later described it as concealment by terrain. In plain English, someone had put him somewhere hard to see. Ryan was airlifted out, and for almost a full day after that, investigators couldn't get anything useful from him. He was conscious, but disoriented, kept drifting in and out, couldn't hold a timeline together. Then, Late the next evening, a detective asked him the simplest possible question. "Do you know who hurt you?" Ryan nodded once. Then he said something nobody in that room expected. He said, "I thought he worked there." That line changed the investigation immediately, because up until then, deputies had been focusing on the obvious theories: random attack, roadside theft, trespasser. But Ryan's statement suggested something different. He had willingly approached whoever this was, because he thought the person belonged there, so detectives started working backward from that. They called the utility office. They reviewed assignment notes. They contacted nearby land contractors. And by the following afternoon, they had a name. A man called Travis Horn. Travis wasn't a utility worker. He wasn't employed by the county, but he had, over the previous 6 months, repeatedly shown up near remote service sites wearing reflective gear, carrying clipboards, and telling locals he was doing subcontract work. He was basically impersonating a field technician. Why? That part took longer to understand. At first, detectives thought maybe he was stealing copper or fuel, using the fake worker routine as cover. Then they searched his trailer. Inside, they found 3 things that changed the whole case. First, Ryan's keys. Second, an old county safety vest matching the one Ryan had described seeing on the employee. And third, a stack of maps. Not utility maps. Maps with remote roads circled, work routes, maintenance, access points, places where people drove alone. At that point, Travis was picked up for questioning. He denied everything, said Ryan had the wrong guy, said the keys were planted, said the vest was from a yard sale. He acted irritated, not nervous. Then detectives played him the clipped audio from Ryan's second call. Just 8 seconds. Static. Then Ryan, whispering, "Meg, don't." Travis looked down at the table, and for the first time, he stopped talking. That didn't prove guilt, but it was enough to get them digging through his devices. What they found was worse than anyone expected. Travis had been monitoring public county notices for months, not to find jobs, to find isolated work assignments, any place where one person would likely show up alone, and then he'd get there first, dress like he belonged, and wait. Ryan was not the first person he had approached. He was just the first one who survived. According to the prosecutors later, the sequence that day most likely went like this. Ryan reached the general area and noticed a man in field gear near the wrong location. He assumed the man was another worker. The man, Travis, told him there had been a change and pointed him south. Ryan followed. At some point, probably when he got suspicious, he stepped away and called Megan. That was the first normal call. Afterward, something changed. Maybe Ryan realized the maps were wrong. Maybe he asked a question Travis couldn't answer. Maybe he turned and started walking back toward his truck. That's when Travis attacked him. Ryan managed to call Megan again, likely while moving, hiding, or trying to get away. That second call connected for 8 seconds. And in those 8 seconds, he started to warn her, "Meg, don't." At trial, the prosecution argued he had been trying to say one of 2 things. Either, "Don't come here," or "Don't answer," because investigators later discovered that after attacking Ryan and taking his keys and phone, Travis had tried to use Ryan's phone to call Megan back twice. she never picked up those calls. That detail, more than anything, haunted her, because for months afterward, she kept thinking about what would have happened if she had answered. Would he have pretended to be Ryan? Would he have tried to find out whether anyone was already looking? Would he have bought himself more time? Nobody knows. Ryan eventually recovered enough to testify. He remembered seeing Travis in the vest. He remembered following him. He remembered realizing, too late, that the guy was asking the wrong kind of questions. Personal questions, not work questions. And he remembered one specific line. Right before Travis hit him the first time, Ryan said, "Who do you even work for?" And Travis smiled and said, "Nobody who'll miss me." That line landed hard in court. Travis was convicted on multiple charges, including attempted murder and kidnapping. Ryan survived. Physically, anyway. But according to Megan, he never went back to remote field work. Never drove those roads again. And he never turned his phone to silent after that. Not once. Because the thing that stayed with him wasn't the attack. It wasn't the broken arm or the heat or being trapped under that rock shelf. It was the second call. The fact that he had managed to reach out. The fact that his sister almost answered after he was already gone. And the fact that for 8 seconds, the only clue anyone had that he was in danger sounded like almost nothing. Just static. One whisper, and a sentence that never got finished.